All right, here he is, everybody, all set to set the table for you for college football season so you can go out and enjoy your summer all summer long. And then once things kick off, August 26th up in Gillette Stadium, Navy, Notre Dame, you'll be right. You'll be ahead of the game. He's the host of Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You. You listen to him on Sirius Radio talking about college football. And he's also a college softball enthusiast, at least here in 2023. He's our old pal, Geoff Schwartz. What's the poop, fella?
I'm a college baseball enthusiast. Unfortunately, my Ducks yesterday lost, so I'm no longer a college baseball enthusiast. It's a very short period of my life where I watch softball and college baseball, and mostly revolves around work. Like if I'm covering it for work, I'm watching. If I'm not, I'm not.
It's a jarring follow, that's for sure. If you follow Schwartz on Twitter during college football season, suddenly he has hard and fast opinions about Sooners softball pitchers and beyond. But listen, he's always a great follow, and we appreciate you taking the time here. You're on your summer vacation. Where better to be in summertime? You're in Southern California, eh? I don't want to disclose your specific location.
Sure, I'm in Carlsbad.
Okay.
It's just June gloom, which is expected. You know, I leave the South where it's 90 degrees every day and we like coming here, but it's like 64 today. And so, but luckily the kids don't care about the temperature of the pool, and we're enjoying our time here. We're going to Disneyland tomorrow, SeaWorld Thursday. So we stay busy. We get to see my parents, which is really good.
Very nice. Yeah, you impose on them. Yeah, Geoff Schwartz, for anybody, if this happens to be your first time listening, a very weird man because, yeah, he lives over in Carolina, but he's an Angelino native, but he roots for the San Francisco Giants, but he also likes the Lakers. It makes your head spin. It's
I've
too much.
I've explained this many times.
I know you have.
My dad is from the Bay Area. He's a Giants fan, but he grew up, I think, maybe a Warriors fan. I don't know. But he became a Celtics fan because of Larry Bird. And when we got, when we were younger, we had tickets to Lakers games. So I went as a kid to a bunch of Lakers games, and I became a Lakers fan. He didn't really care. He's not very passionate about the Lakers. He hates the Dodgers. So it's a very simple decision for me. Yeah.
That's fine. Listen, you don't have to justify yourself. And like I say, I want to talk college football here, and one of the great voices in college football. Like I say, it's a primer for all the fans out there. It's like we said when we talked a couple weeks ago to Matt Verderam about the NFL. It's like, one of the rites of passage. As you say, when you're a little kid, you don't care about whether the ocean is too cold. You just jump in and love it. The pool, same thing. You just jump right in. When you're an adult, no good. But adult, child, one of the great things to do in summertime is to crack that Athlons or the Street and Smiths or the Sports Illustrated and go 1 through 25, all the college football teams, and you read up on all of them. Instead, here, we're going to do the audio/video version of that with you. And I have a few questions for you. I don't want to hold you up too long. Let's cover all the big stuff right now. Do you want to go over some lines here? The Irish are laying 20 in Gillette Stadium. August 26th.
I have not looked at a lot of week one lines yet. I have looked at win totals for some schools. But I've not looked many at week one lines yet. I've done some NFL. I've done the NFL week one lines. College football, to me, because of the transfer portal and all these incoming recruits, I got to read some practice reports. Like, I got to see what's happening, like, roster-wise before I decide to wager on a lot of teams, right? Like, it's hard. Sam Hartman, I get it. It was good at Wake Forest. Playing a much different offense in Notre Dame now. Like, I just need to see a couple of things before I decide to wager on the Irish, right? And the whole Navy is a new coach, right? So like, it's just, to me, college football wager on early lines is tough because there's just the rosters are ever changing now. And you don't know what you're getting in week one a lot of times.
Well, that's always been the case. Is the flow of like the upperclassmen going out and the new kids, and then the assumptions based on the recruiting juice that the heavyweights have, and it's kind of like that. I don't know. I'm not sure I understand oligarchy and all that, but when you hear that on the news, it feels like that fewer people have control a greater percentage of the power. And that certainly is true with college football. But I wonder here in 2023 with the transfer portal and all that, who can dent it? A year ago, nobody saw TCU coming. So let's see if we can identify those. Let's go through the Power Five. teams, and not all of them, unless you want to. If you want to spend your day, we can just go 1 through 200, and we can just count through all of them, or we can pace it up. But Nebraska, I will say this: I did take a look at it just to see, just to whet the appetite. Nebraska and the Gophers are hooking up. Minnesota laying 7.5 in that one. At the same exact time, Florida makes its make good. Last year, you'll remember that Utah went into Gainesville and knocked off Anthony Richardson and company.
No,
now
Utah lost.
Yeah, right. And now right. I'm sorry, right. The other way around. Yeah, Florida pulled the upset on the favored Utes, who then turned it around the rest of the way and knocked off USC, if you need that reminder. At the same time, then you have Colorado at TCU, which is a fascinating game with primetime Sanders' debut there down in TCU, and Ohio State is in Bloomington, Indiana. The Bucks are laying 27.5. What kind of start is that to college football season for the Hoosiers that we have to deal with that?
Sorry, Dave. Are you excited for the Hoosiers to make some business in Southern California in 2020, 2024, 25?
Believe me, my pals have already begun to hit me up because the Hoosiers are at USC in 2025, and people I've already promised they can crash on my floor. Better yet, Eddie Spaghetti, is it cool if they crash on your floor? I'm too far along in life. I can't have a bunch of 50-year-old men laying around my floor. Oh, nice. Thank you. I appreciate that in advance. All right, let's start at the top here. Schwartz, SEC. I guess the first question is, as you know, the shift in power. Clearly, Bama is the 1A powerhouse of college football, ceding control to Georgia. But first question is, can LSU, with Brian Kelly in year 2, Jaden Daniels on down, can they make a dent? If it's not Bama or Georgia, is it reasonable to think LSU might actually take the mighty SEC this year?
Well, they would meet in the SEC Championship game, right? Because Georgia's schedule is a bunch of cupcakes for 12 weeks.
Right.
And Georgia's going to be 12-0. I already bet they're over. Like, they're 11.5. Yeah, Dave, have you seen their schedule?
I know, but I'm curious, though, like, isn't it a factor? It's I would think a bigger issue in college football than it is the NFL. Professionals who know an offense, and probably it's not a major sea change. They're going to Mike Bobo. Monken moves on to pro football. So does Stetson Bennett at age 37. And so, I mean, how can anybody have confidence in a Georgia team except for the fact that they're a factory and they just reload all the time?
Yeah, they have better players than everyone they're playing, like at every position. That's a big part of it, right? In college football, a lot of this comes down to, do you just have a better roster than the opponent you're playing? And in the end, that better roster tends to win out. They're upgrading in talent at quarterback, which is wild, right? They're upgrading talent after having a quarterback that won 2 straight national championships. And we saw last year, and LSU did give them a run in that SEC championship. It wasn't getting blown out in the end, but now you have Brian Kelly in year 2. And look, Brian Kelly to me never got the respect he deserved, I think, at Notre Dame. He was a great coach. No, they couldn't win a playoff game. And sure, again, they're less talented than Alabama, right? Or other teams they played in those games. But Brian Kelly did a lot of winning at Notre Dame. Now he goes to LSU where he gets better players. Jaden Daniels is, a quarterback he never really had at Notre Dame. And we saw the maturity and growth in his game last year. Now, the question I have is Jaden Daniels good enough to be that quarterback to beat LSU? Not LSU, to beat Georgia, I should say, in that game. We'll find out this year, I think. Because LSU, I think, is on the rise. And Bama, after all these years, I think is finally taking a tiny tick down. They're still going to win 10 or 11 games, but I think the tick is just down enough where LSU could be that team, like we saw last year, overtake Alabama and end up in the SEC championship. Other than those 3 schools, Dave, I don't know who else I feel comfortable with. Tennessee's replacing a quarterback, obviously, but Tennessee is not gimmicky in offense in a way that they lose games because of it. But I just don't. I don't trust them to go 12-0. Put it like that, right? They're just not as talented. A&M's not going to do it. There's just not really anyone else that I think is on that level. So to me, it's, if LSU does win, whatever, I think it's the West, I believe. Are they good enough to then end up taking down Georgia? In one game, you can certainly do it. So it'd be the best team Georgia plays all year. I think they're at Tennessee. Otherwise, that's it. Like, they're not playing anyone else.
LSU, are they now like, because the Twin Towers of college football period are Bama and Georgia. So does that make LSU a little more likable as the team that has to vanquish them from within? But the other side of that is Brian Kelly, because otherwise, I always say Notre Dame is the evil empire. They're the one who I think are that's the most popular brand and therefore the most hated brand. So if you don't love them, then you hate them. That's the way, empires tend to roll. But I feel like Brian Kelly is such a weirdo as a human being that maybe they should be the team that everybody's rooting against. How say you? Somehow, impossibly, with as I say, Bama should be the team we're all rooting against.
Yes.
No.
Well, just like Brian Kelly, is he going to have a Cajun accent this year or not? Is he
I hope so. I hope it's thicker,
even thicker than last. I don't think people root against Brian Kelly yet, right? He hasn't won a championship. Like, you have to win a couple of those, I think. I think people look at LSU in the New Orleans area, right, and think of them as a fun party school in New Orleans and whatnot. I don't think people hate LSU. I don't think that's a thing that people really do, especially because the last championship was Joe Cool, right? Joe Burrow and the fun that LSU had. So I don't think anyone hates LSU. I don't even think anyone hates Georgia. I don't. Do people hate Georgia? I don't hate Georgia.
No, I don't think so. Cool uniforms between the hedges. Athens has a cool vibe. It's where REM came from. For people of a certain age like me, you always associate that with must be a cool place to be. Right.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone hates. I think Bama's the one, as you mentioned, and I think people are rooting for their demise. And look, they're over the years they've had a talent drain, right? They've had all these guys go to the NFL. Their offensive line wasn't as good last year. Their wide receivers weren't as good once they had some injuries. And this year they have a new quarterback, and there's some question marks there. I don't really think the kid from Notre Dame is a national championship winning quarterback. So we'll find out how they go. But to me, the question in the SEC is that team from the West going to be able to beat Georgia? And I don't know, man. Georgia's so good everywhere.
Well, I feel like that requires a certain amount of trust that they're just at the level of a machine. Because, what do they have? Like half of their defensive starters went to the NFL for a second straight year. So the ability to just keep reloading is wild, but it also requires a certain amount of faith that they're able to do that. And go ahead.
I mean, they haven't shown otherwise, though, right?
No,
because we're seeing. I know people kind of at times laugh at recruiting rankings and don't trust them, but they're getting pretty good, right? Like the amount of players that are 4- and 5-star players that get drafted very high in the draft, it's a lot, right? Like there's a reason that there's a lot of money spent on getting these kids right, and a lot of times Georgia has the better players. They've proven they can coach those guys up, and I would expect them to play well this year. Are they going to be as good? Do they have another Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith? They're not household names yet, but after 4 or 5 games, they certainly could be. Right? I mean, they had. I think it was. I don't think it was Barry Alexander, but they had a true freshman last year, defensive tackle, that had a sack against TCU in the championship game. Like he'd be the best defensive lineman in 4 other conferences, right? Like, and he's a true freshman on their team with a sack. And I don't think it was Barry Alexander, the kids at USC. That depth is incredible, right? And so those are the guys that are now getting to be starters. I think that is what sets them apart from other schools.
Well, listen, either way, all pro football fans in the Keystone State, PA, will be watching that. Eagles fans to see what defensive players they'll soon have, and Pittsburgh Steelers fans for what offensive players they'll have in a year or 2 from now. Carson Beck is the new quarterback in Georgia. Buckner moves down from South Bend. I feel that's an interesting sea change, right? That Nick Saban is now dipping into the portal. Yeah. I mean, this means the circle is now complete, right? That Saban has done it now means that the waters are safe and we've accepted and fully embraced this new era of college football, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. He's going to be there.
As much as he complains about NIL and all this stuff, like they're doing it at Alabama too. Because it's a quick fix, right? Like it's a way to, you look at your roster and you think to yourself, well, sheesh, we're missing a quarterback. Let's go find someone, right? So you get a veteran, you don't have to coach up as much as a young player. And I think that's where we're going everywhere. We know that. I mean, we're talking about the Pac-12. It's just littered with transfer quarterbacks that are going to end up being drafted very high. It's the way teams are being built now.
Okay, and now let's move on to the ACC there as I'm trying to dig back up the odds that I had in front of me just a second ago for the conferences. Georgia, the favorite to win it with
Oh yeah,
Bama looming right behind them in the SEC. But in the ACC, Florida State plus 160 to win it. It appears the Noles are finally back after a long walk through the desert of irrelevance. They would appear back with Jordan Travis and company. Clemson right behind them at plus 180. I am officially offended, Schwartz, that my Pitt Panthers with Phil Jerkovic, the local kid coming down from BC. He transferred back down, Keydon Slovis didn't quite work out. 25-1. What the hell? Where's the respect? This is a double-digit win team now rolling through. We're on a nice streak there. I don't like that. But Mike Norvell and company appear to be the team to beat, unless you think it's Clemson. And I guess the big question for me with the ACC is it all just easy to, if you're a Clemson fan or otherwise, is it easy to just point at DJU and say he isn't who we thought he was, and Cade Klubnik is the better prospect, was the higher pedigree kid coming out, and he'll make the difference, and Clemson will return to its perch where it's been for the majority of the last decade?
I mean, Cade Klubnik wasn't a better prospect coming out. I mean, DJU was the best quarterback in the country the year that he
is that right? I don't remember that. He was more highly touted.
Yes, he was number one. Well, Dabo seemed to finally admit the offense wasn't working, and they're going in a different direction now, which I think is important to note, because I think the offense should be better this year because of that change in coordinator. We know how important that is. I think with the ACC, it does feel more open than in other years, right? You mentioned Florida State becoming good. We'll talk about Heisman odds, I think. I think their quarterback has a great chance
we'll get to those in a second because there's something real interesting with your favorite conference.
And then the wild cards for me in the ACC are Miami, right? Year two, Mario Cristobal. In year two at Oregon, he won the conference in the Rose Bowl. Like he changed the roster up and got the guys in he wanted and made a big jump in year two. Well, Miami, they need a big jump, right? And he's done the same thing there. Better roster, better players. We know the team's going to be tough and disciplined and try to hit you in the mouth. That wins you a lot of games, Dave. It might not be pretty at all times, but that puts you a 9 or 10 win column, right? And can Miami do enough to disrupt the ACC? And the last one for me is Drake May, North Carolina. They're not as talented as everyone else, but they have a quarterback who's going to be drafted 1 or 2, right? At the top of that list. And when you have that guy, you're going to win more games than not, Dave. And the roster in North Carolina should be better, especially in the offensive line, which they struggled with last year. Drake May, what kind of was their offense? Defensively, I don't know. They got some issues there on defense, but you have a quarterback like Drake May, you're going to be in every game. And so to me, it's kind of those 4 teams up top. Sorry about your Pitt Panthers. I mean, Deion didn't even know your coach was. That's pretty sad.
I don't care what Deion has to say about my guy, who, by the way, is recruiting the hell out of all of a sudden. Here comes Narduzzi's company. I mean, listen, double-digit win.
He's been there like longer than people think, right? He's been like 10 years, hasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it's relative success. I grew up in an age where they were perennial top 10 team, and people still, it almost has that Texas vibe to it, where Longhorns fans still think they're super duper relevant on the college football scene every single year. And it's like, you guys know, outside of the one Vince Young year, you guys are an afterthought in the 21st century.
Yes.
But Pitt fans, to some degree, still think like, dude, Western PA, that's where all the good kids come from. Like, yeah, I mean, that's where all the linemen, to some degree, still kind of come out.
Yes.
But it is funny when you talk about the quarterbacks, and the ACC has a bunch of good ones, but it takes a backseat to the Pac-12. And it makes me think, do you think that sameness is becoming a plague in college football? Because 10, 15 years ago, I used to lament in pro football, every team runs the exact same offense. And now it feels like there's diversity more at the pro level than there is at college. It's just all about the QB to a large degree, to a larger degree than it has ever been in college football. True?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the talent around the quarterback, right? Like, if you have a talented offensive line and a running back, you're going to be more run heavy. You're not going to rely so much on the quarterback. But the reason why, Dave, the game is made kind of for the quarterback in college football is because the field is so much wider. it's not physically wider, but with the hash marks being wider, you get a different perspective on the field, and you can spread things out much easier because of that reason and get kind of favorable matchups. And with the defense so spread out, it brings up the quarterback run, the ability for those guys to kind of find places to go. The athletes aren't as good at safety, especially. So when a quarterback gets moving, safeties aren't coming down the box and tackling those guys. And you can't account for a quarterback all the time because you don't have time to practice for those guys. You don't always be talented players. Like, it's just, so I get why it's so quarterback dominant, but you still get different offenses, right? I mean, Georgia last year won with the pro stylish offense, right? Tight ends, under center, play action pass. You have a Lincoln Riley type offense, kind of this power raid, right? They're going to run the ball a lot of play action pass. So there's different ways teams do things now, but yeah, it's very quarterback dependent. And because of the spacing in the field, it allows quarterbacks to run the ball a lot easier.
It really is funny because when I was growing up, I mean, the quarterback, it's all obviously in football, it's always an important issue. But when I was growing up, for real, quarterbacks would throw the ball 3 or 5 times a game. And
oh yeah, we were in the triple option, yeah.
Krenzel, when Ohio State won the national championship, and that was this millennium, he was besides the point. They largely tried to hide him. Ohio State did. It's really funny. That just does not exist. If you are good in college football, your QB has to be one of your 2 or 3 best players. Okay.
Absolutely.
Who's your pick in the ACC then? Seminoles, Clemson, or do you want to make a case for UNC? I love your Cristobal shout out at 14-1. Great value there for the reasons you cited.
It really is. I need to see quarterback play there before I can really. I feel like, to me, I'm still going with Clemson until proven otherwise. Like, I just think that
it's been proven otherwise. What do you mean? Pitt's won it more than Clemson has in the last couple of years.
Unless they decided to change the offense philosophy, which is important to me. They have a quarterback in that feels like he fits what they want to do a little bit better, has more confidence. I think I'm still going with Clemson before Florida State.
Okay, next to my alma mater's conference, Indiana University, the loveliest of all the Big Ten campuses in terms of play on the gridiron. Mediocre, but there's been some positive stuff.
You have a weird looking stadium, though. I can't deal with that stadium.
What do you mean weird looking?
You know how it juts out? Like, it's kind of weird looking.
Well, they used to have the one open end. Well, it wasn't open end, but it was just a big lawn where the Cutters, Dennis Quaid and his chums in the movie, in the old bicycle movie, they would sit on the hillside. That's where he said, he's like, we get older every year, but the co-eds stay the same age. That's the famous thing. But anyway, I find it's one of the great tailgating atmospheres, because right next to the stadium are the rolling green hills with the little streams and the lovely trees. You hit it right in October, and you're not compelled to go in to watch the game because the team stinks. So it's like, what do I want to go see? Michigan beat the hell out of us? No, I'll stay out here with a beer in hand, and I'll eat some grilled link meats.
Do you know that Indiana gave Oregon probably its most embarrassing home loss in the last 30 years?
Good.
I didn't play that game. It's my first game in college football. I was a true freshman.
Is that true? Who was the QB against you? Antoine Randall? Who
knows? But we outgained Indiana like 4-1. It was like we had like 475 yards. Indiana had 180. We had 7 turnovers. Wow. We lost at home. Oregon's only lost 2 non-conference home games since like 98, and it's Boise State and Indiana.
What in the hell? I have zero recollection of this game. How that's weird, these wormholes.
2004, Indiana came, and we were playing Oklahoma the next week, and we basically, our team like mentally prepared for Oklahoma instead of Indiana. Like, it was, I'll pull up right now, the box score. Indiana won 30-24. And it was on September 11th, 2004. And we had a total of 495 yards in offense. Indiana had a total of 198 yards in offense. Indiana was 3 of 17 on third down. We had 7 turnovers and lost.
Can't measure grit, man. That's it. You know what? That was the worst September 11th of Geoff Schwartz's life. I'm sure. So
not quite,
now,
but sure, okay. But it was my
okay.
first game in college football. I was like, holy sh! I was like, this. It was Lavecchio was a quarterback.
Lavecchio, really?
Yes, yes,
Oh man. Ooh,
yeah,
I can't think of the coach's name, but I know Jerry DiPaolo, right? Was that his name?
probably. But
Anyway.
so yeah.
All right.
And
I
then
don't think the Hoosiers are supposed to be all that good, so we can pass over them. You now have Ohio State, a big
yes,
change there. CJ Stroud out now, and it seems like there's a little bit of a QB battle, right? To see who takes over there.
yeah. I think the Big Ten question to me is there's a lot of hype surrounding Penn State, right? They ended the year on a high note. They are replacing a quarterback that had some limitations with a quarterback who Drew Eller, right? Drew Eller, who is supposed to be like the next big quarterback in the country, highly recruited, a lot of potential there. They return a lot of good play. Now, defensively, they have to replace some guys that got drafted, especially in the secondary, but their core of their team is very strong in returns, and they're a tough physical team. The question is James Franklin going to get this team over the hurdle now, right? Over the hump.
No, is my answer to that.
Okay,
There's no
right.
evidence that he will,
Sure,
right? I mean, am I being overly cynical about him?
No. Well, no, you're right. And they play a tough schedule. And so again, you have to be able to. I think you have to beat both those teams to really win that. What's the West, East, whoever knows, whatever they're in. I'd say the answer is no. But that's the question. Is like,
here's the pushback. Here, let me give you the pushback on that, and it's pretty simple math that you'll relate to. Andy Reid, one of the great coaches in there, but man, he just when push comes to shove, he just doesn't have what it takes to get his team over the hump. Then Patrick Mahomes arrives, and he's a special difference maker himself in the most important position. Sean Clifford, good kid, been around forever, dependable old Red, but not ultimately as good as the high pedigree kid replacing him. Maybe that'll be the difference for Jimmy Franklin.
Yes, it's possible, but you just compared Drew Aller to Pat Mahomes, so that's
get what I'm saying. You get my point.
I know, of course. It's certainly possible, but I think we've seen. I think I gotta look this up. I mean, Penn State just has not been great, like winning a lot of these road games against ranked opponents, and they're gonna have to go. They're gonna have to go to Ohio State this year. They have Michigan at home at Michigan State. Like Michigan State game is actually at Ford Field, so it feels less of like a being in East Lansing. So
not a bad drive for the Happy Valleyers.
No, I mean, and the Indiana at home, which is obviously a win. So
don't say that. That's no reason to take a shot like that.
My question is can they be that team? But I don't think the answer is yes. I think it's Ohio State or Michigan again. Probably Michigan until proven otherwise. Honestly, they're just ability.
Again, it's been proven otherwise. Well, I mean,
no. Michigan won the last two.
Michigan, right? Okay, I'm saying, but the national from a national sense.
Oh, you're talking about winning a championship? No, Michigan's not winning a championship. I'm talking about the conference wise.
But you like Harbaugh to continue his ownership specifically of Columbus.
Ohio State has to prove that they're as physically tough as Michigan is, because they're getting beat up in the trenches. Like there's no secret to why Michigan's winning.
Michigan is superior specifically defensively.
Well, also the offensive line, like they push around Ohio State. And so I got to see Ohio State be able to push around Michigan before I declare Ohio State good enough to beat Michigan and win that game and go to the Big Ten. Big Ten. Michigan's not winning a championship, but I think that. And what's funny is like they're talented enough to win a playoff game. I mean, they haven't done it. The TCU game, it's kind of crazy. They lost by 6, right? And it was a 6-point game. They failed. They did 2 drives inside the 2-yard line, right? So that could be 14 points right there. They threw 2 pick sixes, which is ridiculous. Like they had opportunities to totally win that game, they just didn't do it. They're not going to win the playoff, I don't think, but they're my favorite to win the conference right now.
Okay, and they are 2-1 to do that. Ohio State slightly shorter, plus 180. the
Yeah.
Nittany Lions plus 550, and then it's
I
a
would not.
massive
You can't wager on anyone else in this conference.
a sea of
This
mediocrity
is
behind
bad
that.
money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big 12, we'll go through that one quickly. Texas is a pretty decent favorite in the conference. They're plus 110, and Oklahoma well back there at plus 325 behind them. So a pretty decisive favorite to get it done with Quinn Ewers. My question is does it make any difference that you have the Manning kid hovering in the background there? Is that at all relevant in 2023 to any? Well, just because it would get a different level of attention than any other blue chip QB sitting on the bench.
I'm just curious, like, what Texas has done in whatever many years since Vince Young left to make you feel comfortable to wager on them to win the conference.
I'd be spooked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The Arch Manning thing, yeah, I mean, maybe it pushes Quinn Ewers to be better. I want to give a special shout out though with Texas. Their left tackle, by the way, his name is Calvin Banks Jr. He was a true freshman last year, played every snap for them. He's going to be the number one tackle taken in 2 years. Dude is a monster left tackle. He committed to Oregon, or was going to commit to Oregon with Mario Cristobal. When Mario left, he went to Texas. It was a bummer because it's good. To me, Oklahoma, Brett Venables obviously had a weird year last year. I think year two, their roster is really good. They have a really good roster. He's recruited well. I think they're going to be a lot better. Oklahoma will be. TCU, new quarterback. They have to replace a bunch of guys. That felt like one magical run for them, right? Like that's probably not what they're going to be in the Big 12. Now, obviously, with Texas, Oklahoma leaving, that's a possibility. But I would still lean toward Oklahoma, in my opinion.
Well, pollsters, I get the natural, like, we saw TCU be good most recently, so they should still be okay, right? But it's a different thing when bookmakers kind of ride that same sort of thing. It's like, well, how bad could they are they just going to fall off a cliff? TCU has dropped their 14-1 behind Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's my point. Like they're not the odds makers are in this business of making money. Like they're not in the business of emotions. And they're telling you they're losing a lot of players. I would not be surprised if week one Colorado gave them a scare. And I think Colorado is going to be about a 3 or 4 win team. But they're going to go to TCU and play that game. You know nothing about Colorado. Dave, I think Deion's given only like 11 players numbers so far. Like he didn't have numbers for their players. You have no idea. They have 70 new players. You don't know anything about them.
Are you rooting for them from a distance, just like for the approach of Deion, or are you rooting against it? Because I think there's a pretty good case to be made that you don't want to see the Buffaloes succeed, given what Deion's done so far there.
Well, am I putting my Rob Lowe Pac-12 hat right now? I am rooting for the Pac-12 conference to have much success until Colorado leaves, and I just hate them forever. No,
all right, but you know what I'm asking. Like Deion's, I mean, it's been. I don't like the applause for Deion kicking these 19-year-old kids out of the program when they made the decision is lame.
My general sense is it's not going to go as well as people think in year one. Year two could be much better. It's a lot of pieces to put together, man, this quickly. And their schedule is at TCU, home Nebraska, home Colorado State, and then I think it's at Oregon and hosting USC. So like the best you come out of that, I think, is 2 and 3 with an upset against Nebraska. I guess is kind of how you come out there. If you start 1 and 4, man, then the questions start flying. The players get restless. They're looking to move on again. It's never been done this scale before. People say, well, look what USC did last year. Well, let's talk about that, right? So USC had Lincoln Riley join their program. Guy had been to 3 playoffs in a row, I believe, right? Like playoff winning coach. He brought over the Heisman winning quarterback with him. He got the Blitnikoff winner, sorry, Pittsburgh, to join. And I think Addison even said in an interview like post-year, he's like, I don't know if I would have done that again. Like I think his year didn't go quite like he thought it would at USC. Plus he was hurt.
Financially, he would take it, but
yes,
right, it wasn't.
Yes.
It probably wasn't the greatest change for him. His numbers indicate as much, right?
Yeah, and then but USC also had 3 or 4 of their offensive linemen already in the program that had a good offensive line last year. Tui Pelotu led a nation in sacks. He was already there, guys. Like these guys, they already had pieces in the program to succeed. They got Travis Dye, who led the Pac-12 conference in all-purpose yards the year before. Like they got these huge impact transfers that you already had name recognition and already had success other places. Dion has never coached this level before. He's coached what, 3 years, 2 years, even in college football alone. His son, and I think his son can be really good. Never played this level yet. Caleb Williams plays a true freshman. Like we saw him play. We saw that potential already. They bring in a whole new offensive defensive line. I don't know. Like, can they be great? Sure. But year one, I don't know. Their best player is Travis Hunter, right? Is he playing wide receiver? Cornerback? I don't know. No one really knows yet. Like, there's a lot of things that we don't know about Colorado. We sort of knew about USC. My wife is sitting here mocking me because I'm talking really loudly about college football right now. And so I'm laughing.
Mock her for her back troubles. She's a young lady. She shouldn't be, her back trouble shouldn't start for at least another 20 years.
She shouldn't have back pain from doing work earlier today. Not that type of work, from actual work. And so
I don't know what the other kind of work is, but okay.
And so
is that what it's called in your house? That's what she calls it? Like,
yes,
gotta go to work, the old man.
Yes.
Part of my job as a spouse. I got to do it. It's work for me. Blue collar.
It is. She should write it off.
Don't want to do it. Have to do it.
It's exactly what she acts like. So I just think that the parallels aren't the same. And people that think that Colorado is going to be USC, Colorado was 1-11 last season. Like they were bad. And so I just think that that's not a fair connection to that. Maybe it's our segue into the Pac-12 conference now. But I just don't think Colorado is going to have success. People think in year one. I think Vegas is telling you their win total is 3.5. They're telling you that for a reason, guys.
I think this is an essential point that may be pretty obvious to the Sharps. But as I said a couple minutes ago, look at the pollsters out there. Look at the top 25 as it's set. Then look at what the bookmakers are telling you. When there's a major gap between where a team is ranked, if they're like hovering at 15, I forget where TCU is ranked, but they are
somewhere around there, 15-ish. Yeah.
They're like 15. Then look at where the odds makers have them. That's an opportunity early in the season. They're just riding. Yes. It's a lack of imagination from pollsters just saying like, what? Who was that team? That Horned Frogs? Yeah, they're good. Put them in there. Yeah, they're going to be good again. Like,
yes.
And if you see that gap, there will be, you would think, some opportunity because the bookmakers are ultimately still human beings themselves. And so maybe they'll lean a little bit more. They'll give TCU a little more credit than they should. And that's where you can make hay in the first few weeks of college football season, right?
Absolutely.
From a wagering standpoint. Okay.
But they're playing Colorado week one, who we also have no idea what they're going to be either. So it's sort of we have week one game, I think is a tough one to wager on.
I mean, I agree with everything you just said about Colorado. Maybe they'll arrive in year two. And I do think that's the fair estimation whether it's Cristobal or otherwise, like give them a year to set the program where they want it to be. USC ahead of schedule because of the portal largely. But I think that you talk about value. Let's talk about the Pac-12. And I would love USC in year two, except the funniest thing has happened. As the Pac-12 feels like it's on the cusp of evaporating for the rest of man's recorded history, I get that the SEC is number one and the Big Ten is number two, but man, the Pac-12 has some real good teams.
Yes.
And as we said about the importance of the QB, more important than ever before in college football, here's something fascinating. The three shortest odds for Heisman winners are all in the Pac-12. Yeah. Crazy, right? It's not just Caleb Williams.
It's a perfect summary.
Your boy Bo Nix and my former guy Michael Penix at IU.
It's a perfect summary of the Pac-12 conference right now, right? Like we're going to dissolve. At least UCLA, USC are leaving. Talk about Colorado, Arizona leaving. Who knows what's going to happen with more Big Ten invites? It's going to happen someday. And this is easily the best we've had football since we make a 12-team conference. Like we had last year with 4 teams win 10 games. We're going to have 4 win 10 games again. We're going to probably have 5 or 6 quarterbacks drafted, potentially a couple of guys drafted in the first round, second round, third round. it's a very good conference. And even with that being said, Dave, we're probably not going to have a playoff team. We're probably not going to have a team with the championship
Probably
this year.
not. Why? I mean, I'll
Right,
to help the point
I mean,
how tough it is. SC, was right on the edge of getting into the playoff a year
yeah.
ago, were it not for the
So
Utes. And the Utes didn't go away, by the way, this
here's why.
offseason. They're going to be diminished a little bit. But SC is 2-1. You can get
No,
shorter odds on worse teams in conference in what would seem like tougher conferences.
no.
But
Here's
Oregon's plus 275. The Huskies are plus 350. The Utes are plus 550. The Beavers with DJU, if you buy lower pressure for them up there in the Pacific Northwest, if he can get their 5-1, and then UCLA with Chip Kelly, who everybody I think forgot about 2 years ago until they kind of became relevant once again. They're 12-1.
So here's how the conference is going to break down this year. So USC, I would not wager them to win the conference this year. They have Washington, Oregon this year, who did not play last season. And their last 6 games, I think this doesn't matter toward the conference, but the last 6 games are at Notre Dame, Utah, Cal, Washington, at Oregon, UCLA. Those are the last 6 games. No bye, straight through. And my thing with USC is this. They have new offensive line pieces after having a really good offensive line last year. They have a quarterback who, if he gets dinged up, is he going to continue to play through a dinged up injury? Because
interesting, right?
The idea of he could be the first pick in the draft. The defense has better players, great, but Alex Grinch has never been a good defensive coordinator outside of one COVID year with Oklahoma, when that year shouldn't account for anything. He was okay at Washington State, wasn't great at Ohio State, wasn't great at Oklahoma, wasn't great at USC. And the argument to me is, everyone says, well, they have better players. Okay, they have like 3 defensive linemen. You kind of need 8. Like, you need 8 to be good defense, right? And they rely on turnovers, Dave. They were plus 21 in turnover margin last season. I think it was plus 21, some outrageous number. I looked this up. The team that was number 1 in turnover margin the last 5 years, the next year, on average, they dropped 15.8 turnovers. So USC would go from plus 21 to like plus 5.
That was all their success in year 1 with Lincoln Riley was these perfectly timed turnovers, often deep in their red zone. All of a sudden, they just picked 6 the guy. Like, now the script of the game is being.
It's not even that, Dave. They recovered all but one of their own fumbles last season. They had a play where they were on the -1 yard line against Oregon State. They won 17-14 in Corvallis last year. They had 99 yards to go. Travis Dye, their running back, was stripped at the -1 yard, the 1 yard line, and the ball bounced off the ground and went right back up into his chest, and he caught it, and just fell down. If that ball bounces differently, Oregon State recovers that ball, they win that game, right? That was the difference in that game. So little things like that, I think, for USC, they didn't have happen last year. We know in football, the next year, all those bad things happen to you. That's just the way football works, right? Like, if you have a ton of turnovers one year, the next year you have less. If you're great at forced turnovers, the next year you kind of go back to the middle. And so to me, is USC at plus 5 turnover margin going to be the conference winner? No. Washington is interesting. Everyone you talk to at Washington says the same thing. We have to outscore everyone to win games this year. Don't like that. Don't like that. That's not a recipe to win a conference. We have to outscore everyone.
Right. You don't run the table if that's the premise, and that going.
And the offenses can be incredible. Michael Penix, I would not wager him to win the Heisman. I'll tell you why. Nothing to do with the way he plays. He's going to lead the nation in passing yards. Heisman quarterback highlight reels are plays that Michael Penix does not do. Okay, a lot of the Heisman winning reels are running around for yardage down the field, running around the pocket, throwing the ball down the field. How often do we see a Heisman highlight package of them just throwing in the pocket?
Well, so the sad thing for him is, of course, his most iconic moment was reaching for that pylon against Penn State when he was still an Indiana Hoosier, when he was a running QB. But man, that knee injury must have really been devastating.
Well, also the way they run an air raid-ish offense at Washington, like they were 122nd in rush attempts last season. And to me, like those quarterbacks don't win the Heisman. And I think Washington's going to be really good again this season. Utah, it would be the wager for me at the odds they have right now. I don't know why.
Oh, really? I thought they were going to
Yeah.
fall back some.
Well,
okay.
Well, I'll explain Utah. So the reason they're priced at that is because their quarterback is hurt. Cam Rising tore his ACL in the Rose Bowl, and I don't imagine he plays early. They claim he's going to play Week 1 against Florida. That'd be 9 months after surgery. It's a little soon, but that doesn't matter for the Pac-12 schedule, right? Like you can miss the first 3 games and still play in the Pac-12 conference. And I don't know what Utah's done to say otherwise. Out of the kind of the top 5 teams, right? You look at again USC, Utah, Washington, Oregon State. Right now, they have the best defense. That's important, right? To have a well-balanced team, to have the best defense. The Beavers, to me, with DJU, are going to be better on offense, but defensively, they had a great year last year. They lost a lot of good pieces last year, and I don't know if they're going to replace those guys. So to me, and their schedule's okay. They could be 8-2 heading into Washington, Oregon to end the season. The wild card team to me is Oregon because they have the most talent in the conference, like not even close. There's no.
I think this might be the play, Schwartz, and I'm not just saying that because you're wearing a Ducks jersey.
Yeah.
I really think that this is because look at the way things have gone. What you want is one of those 37-year-old QBs. Bo Nix is that now. Like,
yeah,
I mean, this guy's been around forever.
He's 25, yeah. But Dave, let me explain. So last year, Oregon lost to Georgia. Oh well, we got our asses kicked. We lost to Washington. Bo Nix got hurt in that game. We lost to Oregon State. They needed 28 points in the fourth quarter to win that game. And by the way, with new clock rules, you can't do that anymore. They ran the ball like 17 times in a row.
I hate that, by the way.
We got punked. We got punked, and we certainly did. Colorado added 70 players. Oregon added like 50. Like they quietly redid the entire roster. And people talk about making a coaching jump in year 2, right? Guys, Dan Lanning was never head coach anywhere. Like Kalen DeBoer at Washington was a head coach at NAIA, at Florida State. Lincoln Riley was a head coach before. Dan Lanning had never been a head coach. Won 10 games, 10-3 his first year as a head coach. First time ever. Like he's going to be better in year 2. And they have. I'm going to go on with that Oregon. I'll get over it soon. They brought in this recruiting cycle, 2023. They brought in 10 defensive linemen. 10 plus added Jordan Burch, the pass rusher from South Carolina. That's 10 more than the rest of the conference brought in. Like they're going to be better on defense. And if you're just you just have to be like 50th in defense, like limit explosive plays and be better on third down, and you win the conference. Offensively, they have to replace a bunch of offensive linemen. That's a little concern there, but not that. But they have a running back core that's great, wide receivers, a good play caller from UTSA and Bo Nix. Like to me, Oregon's a play now. Like I said, schedule's hard. They have a stretch where they go like I think it's at Washington State, at Utah. They're gonna lose one of those games. Hopefully, it's the game that's not Washington. But the rest of the schedule ain't bad. So to me, it's Utah or Oregon. And remember, there's no division, so they can play each other again in the Pac-12 championship game. I laid out the reasons why I don't think it's Utah, Washington, USC, or Oregon State. It's not UCLA either. They're not ready for that yet.
It's funny because Petros Papadakis is maybe the go-to when it comes to USC football, and he rightly identified that in the Pete Carroll powerhouse age for all the Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all that kind of stuff.
It was defense. We played those teams. It was defense.
The defense was mighty, right, in the Pac-12, which is a huge difference because what we think of when we think of the Pac-12 is, these pro-style QBs who can sling it around and who can outscore whom. But right, and the other thing is they loaded up with, they would get the guys from Samoa to come over. And, when BYU didn't win those guys, they loaded up at the line of scrimmage. And that was why USC was doing it. And it's interesting because Utah's good at doing that. And now Oregon is doing that. And so bully ball to some degree is what's going to decide the Pac-12, which again which doesn't hit the ear right. But I think that's accurate, right?
You're still going to have a top 10 offense. You're going to have a better defense. Those USC teams, obviously I played those teams. I was in college. We beat USC in 2011 and 2007. All 11 of their defensive players that started got drafted. Like it was like Georgia. And then the backups were like Casey Matthews and Brian Cushing, like those are the backups.
Yeah, that's right. That's wild. Yeah. Think about that.
So,
okay, let's bring it on home here. I don't want to hold you up anymore. Quinn Ewers is 16-1 to get the Heisman. Drake May is 14-1. Jordan Travis with the Knowles is 12-1. Michael Penix is the same. Then Bo Nix 10-1, and then Caleb Williams at plus 450. Give us your Heisman pick as we go lightning here.
There's not been a repeat winner since I think 1975, right? With Archie Griffin.
Only one.
And voters just they want new, right? They want new, they want exciting, they want something different. I think Caleb Williams has a great season, and I think he's the first pick in the draft. There's no doubt about that. I wouldn't wager on him to win the Heisman. I mentioned the Michael Penix thing. Like, he doesn't play the brand of football that wins a Heisman at that position. It's just they don't, unless he changes the way he plays. Bo Nix, I don't think so. And so to me, it's Jordan Travis of Florida State. I think that he's the dual threat type of player that wins that award, especially if they have a good season, which I think they're going to have. Or Drake May, right? Drake May's going to have a better offense line in North Carolina, and he accounted for like 4,500 yards last year, 5,000 yards. He was a leading rusher in North Carolina last year. To me, it's those two guys. And there'll be a third that kind of pops in there, some quarterback that we don't know about. But those to me are my favorites. Jordan Travis.
Watch Klubnik, because watch out for Klubnik here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because, it's a funny thing with Clemson. If you don't pay close attention, then you just sort of you lean on the residual information you had from a few years ago. Like there's certain examples of that exist in sports that you just think something is still true that is long. I think people assume Clemson has ruled the ACC forever, right? No, they haven't won it as much as Pitt's won it recently. It's got to be, with Wake and UNC, and BC wasn't garbage for a little bit there. And now here comes Florida State. It's more competitive. That's why I'm a little down on Florida State, just because I think the level of competition is greater. But okay, here we go. Pick one coach to win a game.
In college football?
That's right.
Yeah, still Nick Saban.
Still Nick Saban. Well, but I mean, that's been disproven now, hasn't it? Okay. You went Nick Saban. Pick one QB to win a big game.
Oh, Caleb Williams.
Okay. One defense in a rugged, low-scoring affair.
Georgia.
One defense and a shoot 'em out, kind of like last possession wins kind of thing.
It's still Georgia.
Pass rush and everything else. Okay.
It's still Georgia.
One offensive line, best offensive line in the land.
Heading into this year. Well, Michigan's won the Joe Moore Award 2 years in a row. So even though I think Georgia was probably a little bit better than last year. I haven't looked at the returning offensive lines for this year yet. You kind of caught me off guard here. I don't have a great answer for you yet.
We'll hit up your boy Duke. We'll see what Duke has to say about it.
Can we rain check this, and I'll get you a better answer. I've not done my my research yet on returning offensive linemen.
Okay, and here's the most important question, perhaps, is if you're trying to evaluate who's going to the playoff. Which relevant team has the Power 5 schedule that you most would want to play? Which is to say, it's Power 5, so I know people get sideways about like, oh, who'd they play in the Big 12? But if you run the table in a Power 5 conference, you're very likely to make the playoffs. So which Power 5 conference, I guess, would you most want to be in? Or if there's a specific example of like, oh, their schedule's a breeze, I would most want to have that team's 12 games this season.
Okay. So if your schedule was here, I'm pull up right here. It's your schedule. You ready? It's UT Martin, Ball State. You're hosting South Carolina. You're playing UAB. That's your first 4 games, okay? You're at Auburn. You host Kentucky. You're at Vanderbilt. You play Florida, a neutral site in Jacksonville. You host Missouri. You host Ole Miss. You go to Tennessee and you play Georgia Tech. I don't know. Feels like a good team can go 10-2.
That's the University of New Hampshire you're talking. Oh no, you're talking about Georgia. Okay,
Georgia schedule. Yeah. That feels like a good schedule to go 12-0 if you're a good football team. I'll take that schedule. That feels pretty good.
I like it. I just don't know anybody on that team, so it's hard for me to get enthused about Georgia, except to just know like, wow, I know that brand loads up every year.
Well, do you know anyone on Vanderbilt or UT Martin or Ball State?
No, I don't. No, I don't, Geoff. And that's a good little bit of pushback there. All right, awesome stuff. What a good time there. We got to catch up with you. I abuse our relationship because there's no one we enjoy talking to about football more, or really the game of life, than Geoff Schwartz. Now you go live it. Go swim in the frigid hotel pool in Southern California. God. Now, like I said, but it must make you nostalgic for your Oregon days. It's like you're up in Eugene right now when you're in Southern California. It's summertime and it's overcast and it's like 66 degrees outside. What gives, man?
Far less rain though, so I'll take that.
Okay. All right. Best to your wife with her back. Have a good time with the kids. Love seeing all the pics. Geoff Schwartz is the best with social media, with the pictures of his kids and everything. It's a lot of fun following him, dadding them up as they do swim meets and baseball and softball and all that stuff. We'll try to catch you. We'll abuse the relationship even further at some point between now
I gotta come on. I gotta come on. So when you make your annual Chargers prediction for the AFC West, I have to be on the show for that.
Do you know what's funny about that? Or not funny, but it's sad. I was thinking about it, and I so want to pick the Chargers to go to the Super Bowl this year or to win that division this year.
Just do it. Just do it for like it seems to work out for my Chiefs. So just keep doing it. Just pick them.
I can't do it, and when I don't do it, that's when they're gonna do it. You know, that's what. But no, you know what? I'm the Miami Dolphins guy in 2023. Geoff Schwartz. I don't know if you heard. Get on board, man. This is the time to do it. They don't even have Dalvin Cook yet.
Do you have you made your Pittsburgh schedule prediction yet? Have you have it in your head yet?
Here's what I'll tell you about it. Here's I don't know the exact number. I think it's gonna land. I can give you a little spoiler alert. It's gonna land somewhere between 11 and 12. I'm not gonna go. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna be 13 wins.
Ooh.
But this 8.5, Pap. What in hell? What in hell, Schwartz? What am I missing?
That's too low.
It's way too low. They won 9 last year. They're gonna win double digits this year, right?
The North is tough, but Tomlin has a winning record every year. How could you bet under 8.5?
The AFC is going to be tough. I mean, the whole thing's going to be tough, but somebody's got to win those games. I'll tell you though, man. I was thinking about it, and here's how a borderline dynasty stays ahead of the game is when you land on just rando picks and the luxury of like. And you see defending Super Bowl champions, they get over their skis like with their late first round pick. They go with some fancy luxury item. It's like you ain't there yet, guys.
Yeah. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah.
Well, that was a good example of doing right. But now the Chiefs are in this weird spot where it's like, oh, he's there in the 7th round. We'll take him. We'll take a shot at him. It's not going to make or break us to do it. And you keep hitting on those picks.
Yes.
And that's how you stay ahead of the game, right?
Yeah. Their entire half of their secondary is like 7th round draft picks. Yes.
And I can't think of his name now. I'm an idiot. What's that number 10's name? The running back? They take it off Tyreek Hill and give it to that guy, and he's
Pacheco.
Right, Isaiah Pacheco. Like that's the kind of thing when that happens is like you just throw your hands in the air and say like,
and their right guard, 6th round pick.
Yep. One of the best in the game now because everybody's like, we can't take that risk. The Chiefs like, we can take that risk. Not going to kill us.
Yeah. So no, you're right. So, but winning back-to-back Super Bowls, it's hard. I mean, it hasn't been done since 03, 04. Right, I think it's hard to do, man. It's hard to win back-to-back.
Last time somebody went back-to-back. All right, listen, we'll have time.
Right,
for that.
right. I mean, like who? Right? No one. I don't think the Patriots didn't win. They won 3 of 5 in their second run.
The last time somebody won back-to-back Super Bowls was when the Patriots they beat the Carolina Panthers and then the Eagles. That's the last time it happened. Sheesh.
I think so, right? Because think about it. The Steelers didn't do it. The Giants didn't do it. The Chiefs haven't done it. The Rams, they won once. The Patriots won they won 14, 16, 18. Right?
Yeah, no, you're right. Wow, how weird. Yeah, man, I can't. I'm just over the moon. I'm biding my time with baseball now, but I can't wait for football. This is the one. I'm so excited for this AFC.
It'll be here fast. It's going to be here soon.
It seems funny to pick those August 26th college football games to pick the Irish and Navy game, but that's 2 months away, man. We're almost home already. All we got to do is go swimming in cold pools for a couple weeks, blink your eyes, and before you know it, it'll be here, right?
Can't wait. Cannot wait.
Can't wait either. All right. Can't wait to talk to you next. Go have a good time with the family. We appreciate you carving out a little bit of time for us.
All right. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for having me.